Hello everyone, I'm Sarah and welcome back to my channel. Today is finally the day, and if I British ramble this entire video, I 100% do apologise, but I'm so excited for this. I finally get to show you my new plot outline. Yes, I ADHD'd a little bit too hard when I was doing all of this prep for Project Grey. Working on my Everything Project Bible really made me stop and think about my strengths and weaknesses as a writer. What I found easy, what I struggled with, the things I tended to avoid or start to get bored and then half-ass. I had to look at everything I prepped before I started writing a first draft and try to pinpoint what aspects of that prep let me down, held me back, made things more difficult for myself in the future, writing the first draft, doing revisions. And I sort of knew what the issue was. My brain gets bored doing all of that work and just wants to jump straight into the physical writing of everything. I sort of pinpointed something else, and that was I could never find anything to give me a strong enough foundation for when I wanted to outline, in order to effectively create an outline I would be comfortable working with without having large gaps for my brain to fill in during the writing stage and then mess everything up. I noticed this a lot with Bird Whistle House, which I did for my 1991 challenge, where I thought that I had outlined really well, and it turned out I had not outlined well at all. And one of the realizations that very quickly came to me was that plot outlines, Save the Cat, the hero's journey, the 3-act method, while helpful, didn't give me enough. There was too much in there to let my brain go wild. It wasn't structured enough. There were too many question marks for my brain, at least, in order for me to effectively outline. I'm thinking in terms of Save the Cat, fun and games. Great. What's fun and games? What goes in fun and games? How much fun? How much games? Bad guys close in. Great. Fantastic. How? Why? How much stakes? How much tension? And so I found myself trying to fill in this void of this very vague sort of explanation of this is where your character has struggles, and I'm like, okay, great, so they'll struggle. But doing that, my brain sort of pushed itself into a very bad routine. Not routine. They found a challenge and they defeated the challenge, and they asked a question, and then they found a challenge and then they defeated the challenge and they asked a question. And I would have so many chapters of just asking questions or just planning things and no real stakes, or I would have stakes after stakes after stakes and not really focus on the character or let them rest or just give them a moment to breathe, and it really threw off my pacing. Not structured enough in that way. Now, some people will find this super easy. If I read more, would I find this easier? Probably. But again, my ADHD brain does not like to focus. It is very picky about what it reads, and I need to really be excited to read a book in order to finish reading that book quickly, or I need to be somewhere where I have no choice but to read that book, in which my daughter's ballet lessons and basketball lessons were super helpful, because I would take my book and read my book while I was waiting for her to finish, and I got through so many books doing that. Not at the moment, no, so that's not quite helpful, and I've lost my train of thought. It's really easy to tell that I do my hair in just one way, because that is like curved round and that's just like jump. Yes, this is my daughter's bow. Yes, it got put on my head while I was cleaning this morning. No, I didn't take it off. I so badly want to be an outliner. The undiagnosed autistic in me really, really wants an outline. It wants to do a really good outline. It wants the foundation. It wants the A to B to C. It wants everything sort of set up and figured out, because doing that I know will make my life easier down the line. I won't have so many big changes to make in regards to plot, where a lot of the times I have to take out massive sections because the pacing is off, or I have to add a lot of stuff because there's not enough interaction with the antagonist, or there's not enough this, or there's not enough that. I have to rework my characters and add so much character work into the plot because they have their basics and that's about it. And because I don't have an outline when I start writing, I will randomly add things to fill in gaps if I don't have something written there. And that's where the subplots come into it that I didn't plan, that appear for a couple of chapters and then disappear because obviously they're not planned and I forget about them. That is where some plot points pop in, history pops in, character arcs don't make sense because I've decided two different things for two different parts of the story. It creates a very big first draft mess. And yes, first drafts are supposed to be messy, but this was too messy. This was so messy it stops me wanting to work on this book more in order to fix it, because I see the mess and I go, that's too much mess. That's too much mess for me to try and figure out. That's too much work. I will not do it. And that is preventing me from, properly finishing a draft into a really good set of stages. So that was a very long-winded way to say, and I apologize for the British ramble at the beginning, so you were warned, don't complain. That led to me creating my own plot structure or plot outline, taking into account everything that I liked from the plot structures and outlines that I had worked with before, and sort of adding the things that I felt they were missing that I personally needed, trying to figure out the best way to help my brain come up with a decent foundation, a decent map to follow that will help with pacing, that will help with characters, and sort of make things easier on myself. So today I introduce to you the 4-act, 8-zone, 16-beat, 32-chapter method, aka the ladder method, which is how I'm going to be referring to it from now on, because 4-act, 8-zone, 16 beats, 32 chapters is just a little bit too long. Think of it as a ladder, except instead of going up, it's going down into hell. Not quite hell, but each step down adds another layer of depth, another layer of context that I very sorely need. Did I put a lot of research into doing this? No, I did not 100% study outlines. I did not study story structure. I did not read books or watch TV shows to see where the ups, the downs, the lefts and the rights were. I just went with what I felt in my heart it should be, with what I feel it should be based on sort of how I like to read or how I imagine a really good structure would go. So that is the disclaimer, and I'm going to do this in two parts because there are two parts to this, and that is the information stage, which I'm going to present to you on this, and the everything Project Bible ADHD element, which I get to show you on my computer because there is another lovely little aspect to it which helps me out a lot. As with everything in the Everything Project Bible and this plot outline, it is going to be very much geared towards ADHD, is going to be very much geared towards my traffic light system that I have going throughout everything, except maybe the first rung, which might not work unless you're pantsing. No matter which stage I end up doing, should be enough there for me to do the outline decently to something that I would enjoy doing. This is going to be super awkward. So I have 4 different colours for my 4 different steps. There is probably an easy way to do this, but this is the way I imagined this going in my head. So we're just gonna do it that way. The ladder method, which has also not been tested. So take that as you will. We start with too much space everywhere. We start with, and this is probably going to get really complicated to look at really quickly. And for that, I do apologize. This is not a square. We start with the 4 acts. Yes, I went with 4 acts instead of 3 acts. Again, everything that I sort of referenced while I was sort of very basically researching plot outlines in ways that would help me out is going to be linked down below for you to look at and get a better look in. 3 acts is okay, but 3 acts always had me way too concerned with Act 2 is supposed to be double Act 1 and Act 3, so there has to be an equal amount of chapters in each of those acts, and it all has to mathematically add up, and it doesn't. But my brain focuses on that because I know that specific piece of information, and it won't ever let me budge with that, which does not help. So 4 acts, so everything can be sort of nice, neat and equal. The first act, we have setting the stage, which is the introduction to the characters and the shift into the plot. Act 2 is rising challenges. And it's just come to my attention that this might be backwards as I'm writing it as I'm filming. So if it is, I do apologise. I will put down text on the bottom to say what I'm talking about. Where was I? Oh my God. These are the initial tests and trials your character will face, and it ends in midpoint. Act 3 is the crisis. Focus of the characters towards their end goal and their downfall. And Act 4 is grand finale, which is the conflict and the aftermath. So those are the 4 acts. If I wanted to just pants something 4 acts, could it work? It could work. I have sort of very specific sets of things that I need to focus on for each of those chapters in those acts. So it could be helpful. We're going to scribble those out, and this is where it might get a little bit convoluted, so I do apologise. We're going to switch pens. Thought I just drew on myself there. I did not. As we go into 8 zones, 2 for each act. How easy is it going to be for me to write on these? And how much am I going to rub out of these previous lines as I do this? So in Act 1, we have the comfort zone, where the character starts at the beginning of their story. And we have into the unknown, not the song from Frozen, which is now playing in my head, which entails things like the catalyst and the debate. Act 2, the first zone we have is induction day, where the main character is being introduced into their new world and their new challenges. And pivot, where the plot, the stakes, the danger pivots from it's sort of okay to it's not sort of okay. Again, here we end with midpoint. Act 3, we have danger, danger. It gets dangerous, and it all falls down, which is our step into the darkest moment. And Act 4, we have the crescendo, which is obviously up and towards the climax of the story. And then our last one, I'm a writer, I can spell. We have closure, which is then obviously the closing chapters and the resolution of the story. From the 8 zones, we head into 16 beats. And I love thinking of beats as the main plot points that are happening in your book, the big deal ones. Again, I don't know how well this is going to work. We start with our opening image, which is obviously the first real view that we have of our characters. We establish their lives, the world, their wants, their needs, their motivation, their past. The inciting incident, which pushes them out of their normal and into the abnormal. And then we end with the debate. Should I or should I not do this thing? Everything we need to, going back to the acts, set the stage of the story. Now we head into Act 2, the rising challenges. We start with introductions to the world outside of what they know, to new characters, to new dangers. The first pinch point, the first major bad thing that happens that the characters have to overcome. A realization the characters have in regards to what is going on, what they have to do. And we end with midpoint. Again, it closes out Act 2, pushing us into the third act, which is the crisis. We start with action based off of what has happened here at midpoint. We have a second pinch point, a second show of the antagonist power, a second difficult challenge that the characters have to overcome. We head into a push. The character is pushing themselves in order to overcome something, in order to make progress on their journey, which leads them to their darkest moment. And that is where we end the crisis act, pushing us into the grand finale. From their darkest moment, they enter recovery. They are recovering, obviously, from what happened. That word is self-explanatory. I did not need to explain anything at all, which will then lead them into their confrontation with the antagonist. That confrontation will lead to the climax, which obviously leads to the resolution. Now, I could end here, technically, and based on everything that I have in all of these, I could come up with a very decent outline, I guess, which has most everything I need, the ups, the downs, etc., etc. But no, Sarah had to go one step further. And this one step is not going to be helpful at all, and I'm not going to be able to write in any of these squares when I make them. You do not need to watch me rub all of these out. And we're going to jump to me being done. This is really starting to hurt holding this up. Why did I decide to do this? Why did I not change my mind when I thought I should change my mind? As we head into 32 chapters, in which we're just gonna... So each act has 8 stages the character goes through. It has 8 beats that the plot must hit, and it has 32 chapters in which to include all of these, in which I'm just going to number them as we go, because that will be easier. We have before, what the character is like before they get to the end of the story. We establish their lives, their motivations, their history. We have the chapter which explores the theme of the book, and we have the catalyst, which pushes the character from what they know to what they don't know. After the catalyst, we have a reaction to what has just happened in the previous chapter. We debate whether or not we are going to do the thing that we need to do. It escalates. We have a moment where the character experiences in real time what is at stake in order to help inform their debate, which leads them to the crossroads and ultimately, more than likely, deciding or being forced to go upon this journey. Heading into Act 2, we start with the reaction, again, to everything that has just happened. This is a chance to explore how the character is feeling, where they are physically, mentally, what their thoughts are. And they start on their journey, where they have a reminder about what is at stake and are presented with a challenge that they must overcome. This challenge will push them into another realization about what is going on, maybe helping inform their decisions a little bit more. And they start to make headway, they start to do good, they start to make progress. They feel like they actually have a chance. But then they hit a snag, something unexpected, which pushes them into the midpoint, which is either a success or a failure for their journey, depending on how you want your midpoint to go. This pushes us into Act 3 and a reaction to what has just happened in the midpoint. We come across yet another challenge that they have to face. This challenge is negatively or positively affected by however the midpoint went, which pushes them into a recovery chapter for both the midpoint and the challenge that they have just overcome. Quickly followed by yet another reminder of what is at stake. This reminder will push our characters into a reaction where they will push in order to try and fulfill their goal. That push will lead them to yet another snag in their journey, which culminates in the actual crisis or the reminder of everything that is at stake, their darkest moment. Heading into Act 4, the first thing our character is going to do is wallow about what has just happened. They are going to doubt themselves and their abilities, which will lead to a discovery, whether this is of abilities, whether this is of a new plan, whether this is of something they can do, or self-belief. Something which will push them to dig deep within themselves in order to head off and confront the antagonist and push us into the build-up towards the climax. This is when things start getting more tense. This pushes us directly into the climax of the story. This is where things, in regards to that certain goal, end, which pushes our characters to a moment of resolve, and then we see them after everything has happened and how they have changed. It looks really complicated. I promise it's not. But that is, in essence, the ladder method plot outline. It is perfectly simple for my brain to follow. It is giving me specifics of what needs to go in every single act, every single part, and if I choose to, which I will choose to, every single chapter. It gives me a focus. It gives me a sort of hint as to where the stakes need to be, where the tension needs to be within each of these chapters. It is ensuring that I have enough of the antagonist present in order to cause issues and in order to feel more dangerous. It allows my characters to have moments where they are challenged, where they struggle, where they are sort of relaxed. It ensures that I have the big moments and the small moments, the reaction to those moments, and hopefully will help make sure everything is paced, where there is not too much action, where there is not too much nothing, and where I'm not just rinse and repeating. Something happens, make a plan, go to do the thing. Something happens, make a plan, go do the thing. It helps, hopefully will help me stop being so repetitive. But that's not all. There is another little step, not even a step really, there is another little aspect to the ladder method. Just for me, just for anybody who is better with visuals rather than just the written word. And for that I have to move over to my computer to show you, because that would just be easier. So as you can see here, we have the printable version, I guess. We have our 4 acts: setting the stage, rising challenges, the crisis, and the grand finale. We'll move over to the 8 zones, and again to the 16 beats, and then the 32 chapters. But as I was sort of researching, and this is going to sound stupid, I was researching different ways to say comfort zone that wasn't comfort zone. So I didn't have to use the term comfort zone in this outline, just to be a little bit different. I discovered the best thing ever and immediately applied it to my outline, because I knew it was going to be super helpful visually, especially where I struggled with stakes and tension. And those are the comfort, stretch and panic zones. Where I got this from, I'm going to link it down below so you can give it a better read. It's basically talking about the 3 different zones that you could find yourself in while you are at work. You have the comfort zone, which is simple and familiar. You are confident and relaxed, but it's boring and understimulated, and it's static, fixed. You are protected. Then you have the stretch zone, which is where you are given something new, something challenging. It's active, demanding, but you are developing, you're learning, you're engaging, and it's difficult, but it's satisfying. And then we head into the panic zone, which is where you are completely overwhelmed. Everything is stressful, everything is scary. You can't learn because you are so panicked, everything is too much. And I went, perfect, absolutely perfect. That is what I need for my characters. And so we did this, not with the 4 acts because I found that a bit stupid, but I color coded everything. For blue, the comfort zone, yellow, the stretch zone, and red, the panic zone. So I can see clear as day where my characters need to be mentally and physically in every single chapter. And there is a gradient, of course. Into the unknown, we go from comfort into the stretch zone, from stretch zones into panic zones, back into stretch zones. So visually, I know exactly where my characters need to be. This tells me where the stakes and tension need to be. So we'll do the 16 beats because that's going to be the most effective example. Opening image and establish are green. They are comfort. This is how we know our character. This is what our character knows. Pushing into the inciting incident, obviously we're going from the comfort zone into the stretch zone. It is something new, it is different, it is challenging, but it is manageable. And then we'll stay in the stretch zone through introductions, first pinch and realization, because obviously this is still something new to them. This is still outside of their comfort. We push into a panic zone for midpoint. We stay in the panic zone for action and ease out of it for second pinch point, which after midpoint, that should be a little bit of a stretch, but doable. And again, push, we're still in a stretch zone, but we are pulled back into a panic zone for the darkest moment. And then we ease in and out of panic and stretch until after the resolution, where we ease back into the comfort zone. Or if you're going to have a cliffhanger, we'll ease it back into a stretch zone. Or, you could be really horrible and leave it at a panic zone. And then here's what it looks like for the 32 chapters, where we have comfort, panic, stretch, panic, and visually, where it's supposed to be super easy at the beginning, and then mildly difficult for the first few, and then mostly difficult as you get towards the end. I'm really happy I found this, and I really, really, really think it is going to work. I really, really hope that it's going to work. I hope. I'm going to be using the ladder method to outline Project Grey in preparation of the 100k quarter 4 challenge, and I'm really, really excited to put the work in and see, 1, if I can actually outline with it, and 2, after I've written the first draft, if it gives me a decent sounding first draft without any of the weaknesses and pitfalls I find that I usually have in the first draft, and see how easy, hopefully, it will make revisions in the future. That is everything for this video. Let me know down in the comments below what is your favourite way to outline if you outline, and I will see everybody in my next video. Bye guys.